And we are live. Good morning, Crystal. I see the little sign said you are live. That's kind of cool. Good morning, Crystal. How are you,
Good
ma'am?
morning and afternoon,
Yep.
Jevon.
Oh, yeah. It is afternoon. Yes.
Good to see you as usual on a nice Monday. Know how the week kicks off.
There you go.
Hmm.
Lovely always to see you as well. It looks like we have a good day out there. Hopefully, it's going to last a little bit longer. I see the clouds coming in, but we're going to do our show before the clouds get here.
Okay, sounds good to me. Not that we're outside, but okay.
I know I say this every week that I'm excited about the broadcast we're going to do because I am excited about the broadcast. This last time we talked about how an employee can make their plan better. Now we're going to talk about how an employer can make
Mm,
their plan better. And by better, I mean contribute to their bottom line, right? So
okay.
often we talk about plans as being an employee benefit or employee benefit. Let's put it that way, an employee benefit. That is, they're a benefit of working for that particular employer. And we often forget, okay, they're the big client because they made the decision to implement the plan. How do we make it worth their while? Because most people that I know of don't get into business out of the goodness of their heart. They get into business to make money. So, how can we help the employers make money? Make sense?
Makes sense to me. Like
Okay,
it.
cool. So here's what I'll do. I'll read your bio and then we'll jump right in. Is that cool?
Sounds good.
Okay, here we go. So, everyone, please join me in welcoming my friend and colleague, Crystal Mitchell. She is a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions, the co director of Recycling Black Dollars, co host of The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. It's another weekly online radio show. She's an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Hey, Crystal, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad it's a Monday here.
Good deal. I'm
Hmm.
reading over your bio here. You don't. When do you sleep? There's no room for sleeping here. Oh my goodness.
I
We're,
know. Sometimes it's like questionable. When is sleeping time?
wow. That's I am
Sunday. I sleep on Sunday.
Sundays. Okay. Well, I always knew that I was, blessed to have you as a friend and a colleague and a co-host. But after reading that bio, I guess I've been doing it for about a year. So 2 years, man, that's a lot. You got a lot going on, sister. A
Got a
lot
lot
going
going on.
on over
The best part about it though, there is all in the same area, so it's not like diverse different industries. It's all in the same, and it
there.
just kind of all works together as a nice little wrapped up gift with a bow.
There you go. Okay. Well, I'm glad of
Yeah.
that. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's jump in. We're going to talk a little bit about how does an employer use a retirement plan to improve his bottom line or her bottom
Okay.
line. So, first thing is we're going to clear the air a little bit and we're going to talk about what we call plan design. That is, how do you design the plan? What elements do you need to put in there? How do you work them? And so on and so forth. So, we've got three topics we're going to talk about. One is a discretionary profit sharing plan. Two, the second one rather, uh, is creating a match, what we call I'm going to call it a match built on contributions. And those two things have to do what we call vesting or ownership. And then the
Mm.
last thing we're going to talk about is to consider auto enroll. Okay, so you ready?
Yes, I am very much ready.
Okay, here we go. And of course, kick in here anytime with some comments like you do.
Okay.
So, first plan design opportunity is discretionary profit sharing. So, first of all, let's get rid of that misnomer of profit sharing. Often, when I say that to an employer, they say to me, "Well, I don't know about giving up my profits," or they'll say, "I don't have any profits. That's why I've that's why my accountant and I designed it so that I wouldn't have any profit." And I say, "Okay, let's drop that word profit and call it an employer contribution. The
Mm.
word profit sharing came back in the day when you had to call this money that you were going to use to pay for something, and so they called it profit sharing. But in actuality, it's just an employer contribution, and that's important because the mechanism is the same, even if you were doing a non-profit plan like a 403b or for a not-for-profit company, or if you were doing a government plan that you were using a 457, you still have this thing called quote unquote profit sharing. And I'm going to say, let's just call it an employer contribution. Is that okay?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so the key word to this employer contribution, and let me say that it comes with your standard 401k plan or your standard 403b plan. It's not an extra thing that you have to arrange for. But the key word to differentiate these employer contributions is that we're going to call them discretionary. That is, the employer can invoke them at their will. And now, how does that work? I think you probably remember the situation where I suggested that an employer come out onto the showroom floor, the proverbial showroom floor, and say, hey, last year we had X amount of accidents and that cost us Y dollars. This year, if we bring that down by X percent, I'll throw a little bit of money into your profit sharing plan, right?
Okay.
So that can incent employees to actually clean up their mistakes and work a little better, a little harder, because now they have a little bit of ownership of the company. That is, the employer is going to kick in some money from the overall fund, right? So we can say they're decreasing their profits if we want to go back to that profit sharing thing. Okay, the big part of that, and also the next thing we're going to talk about, is vesting. And vesting is a tough term for a lot of people because it doesn't make sense anywhere except here that I know of in this arrangement. But vesting,
well, it does in the HR world, right? Because even then, you gotta, there are certain other benefits that you have to be vested. True? Yeah. Like if you work for a public company, you don't just automatically get stock. You have to have, there's some criteria to that. You might have to be there a year or 6 months, or in some cases. So some folks have very long probationary periods. So yeah, you got to be vested in. So basically, let's describe it as have a vested interest in we're staying employed at that company.
That's exactly right. That's perfect. That's a perfect.
That's perfect.
Yes. So you can place as an employer that schedule, that vesting schedule. It's traditional to either do a 5-year vesting schedule. So the first year would be like a 0 year, and then years 1 through 5 after. Sometimes people do a cliff where you have to be there for 5 years or 7 years before you have ownership of the money. So that's a pretty important thing, because now the employer is saying, okay, for those employees that are going to stick it out 3 years or 5 years, I'm going to give them complete ownership of the monies that I've been setting away for them, right? So now the owner of the plan is saying, okay, those folks that are quote unquote taking an interest, they have a vested interest in what I'm doing. They're going to stay with me longer, and I'm going to reward them so that they're going to be fully vested in 3 years or in 5 years, or every now and then I see 7 years, usually like 3 or 5 years. So that means that if that employee leaves after that 3rd year and there's a 3-year vesting schedule, they get to take all that money with them. That money becomes theirs. Or if there's a 5-year vesting schedule, once that employee leaves, that money is fully theirs, right? So that way the employer can say, okay, you're going to be vested. That is, you're going to be with me for these 3 or 5 or 7 years, which means you're going to be part of the business. So it's a way for the employer to say, okay, you're with me. We're doing this together. Make sense?
And I think it also, having these types of benefits, in my imagine, for me, it says, I care about you. You're part of my team. I can't do this without you. And so this is my way of being able to show my appreciation of your commitment. And I think on other hand, on the other side of that is it also the employee now feels that they're valuable, because a lot of employees don't feel valuable. They just feel anybody could do this job. But
Right.
if an employer is offering those type of businesses, it says a lot. It says I love you in a big way.
Exactly. We like that big way love, man. That's some
Right,
good
big
stuff.
way love, man.
Big way love. We like that. That's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're spot on. So the second thing that we want to talk about, which also involves vesting, is consider a match. Now, I sell a lot of plans to folks, and they have what we call a safe harbor match. And if you have a safe harbor match, then you are immediately vested once the employer gives you, once you get in the plan, right? But this is a different situation. Typically, with a safe harbor match, the employer wants to make a contribution for themselves, right? And they are afraid of what we call testing. So they do what we call a safe harbor plan. It's a place where they can make this plan, and they put certain parameters around it to where it's a quote unquote safe kind of plan. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking about the non-safe. I'm talking about a totally different situation where the employer is thinking, okay, I don't necessarily need to contribute to the plan. I just want to make this plan help my business. And so in that situation, like we were talking about before, they can use that discretionary profit sharing. The second thing is a match. They could put a match in, but I'm going to see a special kind of match. They want to consider a match that is built on contributions. That is, the more you put in, the more he's going to match, or the more you put in, the more she's going to match. So a situation where if the employee puts in 1%, the employer puts in 0.5%, right? Up to some percentage. And one of the things one of the terms that we use in this business to describe that is we call it stretching the match. And it serves a couple of different purposes. And I think the point you made about caring for me is very important, because most Americans need to save between 10 and 15% of their income in order to make it to retirement. Usually because we don't start saving until our 40s or late 30s, right? So we've got to save more and take more risk. So if we could start in our 20s, maybe we would only have to save 6 or 7%. But because we don't start until our late 30s or early 40s, we've got to put away more. And we usually have to take more risk in order to reach our goal. So the employer that incents their employees to do that, let's say they do a 100% match up to 6%. So you put in 1%, they put in 1%, that kind of thing. Now the employee is really putting in 12%, right? So that's pretty good. If our goal is between 10 and 15, it's costing the employer 6%, and voila, there they go, right? So other types of matches, if we go back to that safe harbor match, that matches up to 5. If you put in 5%, the employer puts in 4%. So in that situation, the employee's got 9%. They only need to put 1% in more, and they're at 10%. A very, very good deal, right? So I like those matches that are constructed so that the employee has to get some skin in the game, and the employer comes alongside them. And that's the way we can look at it. The employer is going to come alongside you, because when you get right down to it, it's not the employer's job to pay for your retirement. It's your job to save for your retirement. So they're just going to help you out, right? And I would say to employees, get the match. Do not leave that match on the table. It's not free money. Get the match, right?
Right.
If you don't take the match, you're in effect saying to the employer, oh, I don't need that money. You just keep that. Now, nobody I know is like that. So get the match, right? So if the employer does what we call stretching the match, he can actually help those employees get closer to the retirement goal, because they've got some skin in the game. He's got some skin in the game. And when you add those two together, we're getting a lot closer to that 10 to 15% that we need to contribute. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So that's what I call building a match on contributions, and they can use a vesting schedule as well. So the employer could say, okay, you got to be here for 3 years or 5 years until you actually own the money that I've contributed on your behalf. So again, he can keep those long-term employees that he really wants, right? Make sense?
Okay, sounds good. And like I said, it creates, in the matching piece, you, like you just said, you have to be vested in this. This is your retirement, right? So it's, you got to have some skin in the game, as they say, right? So you're just not walking away and they've put all it in, because not all the onus is on how well you're performing. And if you don't perform, man, I'm investing way too much money in you.
Right?
Right? It does come down to that, because those are basic emotional feelings.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
right.
Exactly. And
Even in the retirement plan.
even in the retirement plan, especially in the retirement plan, right?
Right.
So I couldn't have said that better. Okay, so the last thing that we have to consider is a little bit out of left field, and it's what I call auto enroll. Well, I don't call it. I mean, we all call it auto enroll. So, and that's it is auto enroll, and that's a situation where you are automatically enrolled in the plan. And it could be a 1 year or when you first start. Generally, there when you first start. But auto enroll is a situation where the employee is going to be enrolled in the plan, whether they like it or not, and they have the opportunity to opt out. So you might say, how does that help an employer's bottom line? Well, if the employer combines that auto enroll and a match, let's say, now the employee really feels taken care of. The research that I've seen suggests that employees, for some reason now, they really aren't very good at saving for retirement. So what they really want is for someone to force them into that situation, take care of it for them, and do it for them, right? And so employees really appreciate an employer sort of taking that first step and enrolling them in the plan. And a lot of employers are a little bit hesitant. We had a lot of problems with this when I first ran into it back in the I guess that was the 90s, I suppose. Or I'm sorry, yeah, back in the 90s. Well, maybe like the 2000s, when employers were thinking, I don't want to force someone's hand, right? I don't want to be the one that is taking money out of that person's mouth, because they may need all that money to feed their family. But the research that we did suggested, like I was saying before, that employees really want their employer to, for lack of a better word, force them in the plan. And if the employer combines that with a reward for making contributions, then that's really good. The thing that I like about the auto enroll is that it can be a teaser. So the employer can say, look, okay, you're going to be auto enrolled in the plan. I'm going to match your contributions 100% up to 6% every year, right? So you put in 1%, I'm going to put 1%. Da, 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 da. But they can say, if I auto enroll you, I'm only going to auto enroll you at 3%. So it's on you to do the other 3%. Does that make sense? So now the employer is saying, okay, I want you as an employee so much that I'm going to stick you in the retirement plan, and I'm going to give you money for making a contribution. And if you go above and beyond, I'm still going to give you some money to make a contribution, and you're going to get close to your retirement. Right? So now, why is this a good thing for an employer to do? Well, for one thing, we realize that people need to go through organizations. I mean, even though the employees have a shelf life sometimes of 2 to 3 years, we have that idea that employees are going to stay there for quite some time, right?
Right.
So as an employer, you need to make sure that those employees that you have, that they're actually going to contribute to your organization, and then they're going to go so that you can bring some younger blood in, right? So the last thing in the world you want as an employer is to have somebody working for the benefits. I'm just here for the benefits. I'm not doing a bunch to contribute to the organization. I'm just biding my time until I have to retire and I can't do this or what have you. What you really want is people that are engaged, that are going to be making changes, making decisions, growing the organization. And many times that takes someone who's got the energy and the drive to succeed. And the way they succeed is by starting in the organization when they're relatively young and moving through the organization, right? Another reason this is going to help the employer's bottom line is that everybody knows that training people is an expensive thing, right? So it's good for that employer if you can come in with experience. That means you got a little bit of age on you. You've been doing this for a little while. You know how this gets done. And so coming into that organization, maybe you need to figure out how they do it, but you're going to increase what that employer is going to do. You're going to make a positive effect on that organization. So that means we got a little age on us. And we all know that once we have a little bit of age, we have some families, the benefit package becomes very important, right? We call that total compensation, right? So maybe my salary is a little bit lower here, but my benefits are a little bit better. Or maybe my salary is a little bit higher here and my benefits aren't as good. Which one do I choose? Right? So
Exactly.
it's a good question, right? For some people, benefits are really, really important. If you're a single parent, if you have people in your family that are sickly, or if you just like to be taken care of,
And I think I remember I'm thinking back when I first started my career out of school, right? Those are some of the things that you were looking for. 'Cause first of all, we saw ourselves with more longevity at our jobs. We figured we'd at least be there 10 years, 10, 15 years, right? So that's a good jump start on the retirement plan. So we went into it thinking that. Of course, now I think it's since the technology age is, every 2-3 years they're rolling back out and going somewhere else, which makes sense because that's the only way they're going to make any significant increases in their salary. For us, I think it was you would look at the whole thing. Okay, what do they have a pension plan? What are their benefits? Did they have the HSA plans? Did they have what are your vacation days? Did you get comp days? All of those things were very important when I first started as an employee, in the work world.
Yeah.
Salary was good. But of course we're young, so our salary is comparable to whatever, our skill sets were at that time. And then, okay, we could see ourselves 5-10 years into this business. And okay, then I might have to change, or, in my case, I was going into it knowing that I was going to come out on the other side of the 10 years in my own business. But nowadays it's different. That's the last thing that young people are looking for when they was like, what's the salary? That's all I care about. The salary and what is the signing bonuses? That's what they're looking at.
Right. Yeah. And I think that makes it kind of tough on employers because many of them are saying, look, you come in here, I'm going to train you. It's going to take you a little while to get up to speed and you're going to leave in 2 years. Whoa, why should I kick in these retirement plan benefits if you're going to be gone in 2 years? So it's now the employer, I think, are looking at, okay, how do we keep this brain trust here? How do we make sure that if somebody comes in, they stay here for a while? Or how do we make sure that that employee, while they're here, that they feel appreciated, part of the family? How do we do that? The realities of the workforce are the workforce. I mean, that is just the way things go. So how employers can take their retirement benefits, mold them into something that works for their company, that fits their company's needs, and mold them so that they can actually use them to incent employees to work hard and stay there. That's a really important thing. And that's why we wanted to talk about this. And these three things: number one, the discretionary profit sharing. Number two, consider a match. That you can also use a vesting program on. And then number three, consider auto enroll, because employees like that. They like to be taken care of.
Right. So I agree.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Any closing remarks?
No, I think it's from an employer standpoint, I think they do have to do something that they can solicit and maintain the brain thrust, because that's important to the stability of your company. And
Right.
and if you're choosing to scale your company, which should be everyone's objective, is you do need people that are experienced, that have been through some other stuff with your company to take you to that next level. And I know it's pretty tough. And after the pandemic, it really became tough for them to maintain good employees. But on the other hand, I think they have to go back and look at what did they do besides the benefits. What were they doing, employers doing, a couple of decades ago, that actually enlisted that those individuals to want to stay there, right? There were certain things that were also on their part, far as making them feel that they're part of a team, making them feel that they're an important part of the business. So they're an asset. Just like I always say, you have human assets, and those human assets are the people that work for you. And you really need to make sure you're treating them as that, because we've all, those of us that have been solopreneurs or one man shop entrepreneur, that's a tough. You wearing all the hats, man. You everybody, right? So our goal as an entrepreneur is, when do we get to a place where we can hire somebody? Because we cannot grow, we cannot expand, we cannot multiply and increase our revenue basis if we don't expand with other human people, right? So somehow or another, we have to find that happy medium between the two of them.
Mm-hmm. Well said. I could not have said it better. I think that's what employers are saying all the time. So with that, I believe is the end of our broadcast for this week today.
Okay.
And I want to thank you very much for hanging with me. And I think you just had the last word.
I did. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you all next week. And come back for more riveting tips on how to retire comfortably.
I like riveting. Riveting is
good. Riveting tips, man. Riveting.
Riveting is good. That's good. Okay. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye, everyone. And we're going to say bye again.